is about the fact that quantitative and qualitative research are slightly different in the way they examine each of these variables, and one of them, reflexivity, is not even really noted in quantitative research. Okay, first is validity in quantitative research, which means that researchers can draw meaningful and justifiable inferences from scores about a sample or population. The second bullet down, validating findings in qualitative research, means the researcher determines the accuracy or credibility of the finding through strategies such as member checking or triangulation. So in other words, there's external validity discovered in qualitative research by looking at ways to triangulate. So in other words, confirming that the way you transcribed or the way you understood somebody's interview, that's actually the meaning that they anticipated or intended to provide you with. Or there's another data instrument that can help confirm your findings. Now, on the right side of this slide, reliability, all right, in quantitative research refers to whether scores or items on an instrument that you're using are internally consistent. Are the items' responses consistent across all constructs? So in other words, do people understand what you're saying? Do they not confuse the language that you're using? Because if it's confused, then those items will not be reliable in the responses that you get, okay? So stable over time, okay, test, retest, correlation, and whether there was consistency in test administration and scoring. So many of you are, at least one of you, I can't say many of you, several were using instruments that look like questionnaires, instruments that you were designing yourself. One or two people had assessments or instruments they were using that looked like they were adapted from another study or another project. If you have something that has been used previously, you can assert some reliability if it's been used and documented that it's been used successfully. Yes, Donna? Okay. Next is qualitative reliability. This is vastly different than quantitative reliability. Qualitative reliability indicates that a particular approach is consistent across different researchers and different projects. So in other words, sometimes there's a good deal of qualitative studies that are done in research teams to gather narrative data. Now, you guys, of course, are not going to be using research teams, but the way in which the data is collected has to be consistent upon the researcher, the methods that are used. So in other words, if you're doing phone interviews, all right, it would be more consistent to have all phone interviews instead of some interviews at the coffee shop and some interviews over the phone and some interviews through Skype. Okay, so having consistency across the way in which the approach of your design is occurring is what would be considered qualitative reliability. Some qualitative researchers have a lifetime of work through several approaches such as grounded theory. And so over many years, they have to make sure they're consistent in the way in which they approach the data collection process. All right. Everybody understand validity and reliability? Okay, good. All right. Okay, the last one on the bottom is reflexivity. And this means that researchers reflect about how their biases, values, and personal background, such as gender, history, culture, and socioeconomic status, shape their interpretations formed during a study. So reflexivity is typically offered for qualitative researchers because you are making interpretations about the data. So it's important to try to consider what kind of lens you're looking through for your interpretation. So in other words, okay, I think there's one or two people here that are interested in, and they're involved in doing outdoor education. All right, so knowing and letting part of the reflections be written up in a way that you tell the reader that this area you have XYZ experience, these are the things that you've done, and this is the lens that you're looking through. Because someone without that experience may completely look at the data differently. That's not a bad thing, to also have someone that has no clue about what you're doing look at the data too. And I encourage those of you that are doing qualitative research, and we'll talk about this in the fourth section, to think about ways that you can connect with others, and maybe people here in this class or that are doing ED 632 at the same time. Consider looking at each other's data and suggest the themes that those individuals see from the data, and then try to look and see if there's themes maybe that you possibly missed, didn't see, or were confirmed by someone outside your study looking at. All right, raise your hand if you're ready for me to move on and you feel comfortable with these three terms. Okay, great.